Hi, welcome to my channel. Nice to have you here. My name is Reina and I'm a cosplayer. And today I'm going to show you how to edit your cosplay selfies. So let's start. For this video I've chosen this picture of me cosplaying Anastasia, and first of all I'm going to duplicate the background by pressing Ctrl J. So I've created a new layer which is a copy of the background. Don't ever work on the original background layer, always create a copy and then start working. And we'll need this original background layer to see the differences between the original photo and the edited version. Now the first thing I'm going to do is go to Filter and Camera Raw filter. Now it opened the Camera Raw menu and I'm going to pick the before and after view, then go to this menu, which is presets. The new versions of Photoshop have a lot of built-in filters to basically automatically color correct. Go to Portrait, Light Skin. For me, I'm going to pick the preset that I like most. And here also black and white presets and edgy. Let's check them out. Okay, kinda cool. I think I like this one most, but it kind of changes the colors. And right here you can also basically decrease the opacity. I think I will set it to maybe 70. Okay. So here is before and here is after. Next we are going to correct the eyes. So I'm creating a new layer, zooming in on my eyes, picking the brush, color white, and I'm going to simply paint over my eyes. Decrease the size if you need to. Increase the smoothing, so the brush will be moving like this, very slowly, and it will help you to draw a straight line, but we don't need it right now. So it looks super harsh right now. Obviously I'm not going to leave it like this. Go here to opacity and decrease it to 0 and then gradually increase it. Like this, 15, maybe a bit more. I think 20 is fine. So before, after. Tip number 3. Darken up your makeup. I'm going to create a new layer which is gonna be the curves layer. So go right here and pick curves. Drag this curve down, maybe like this, and invert the layer by pressing Ctrl I. So the eyeliner is quite dark on its own. I don't think that I have to darken it up even more. So I'm going to slightly darken up my eyeshadow, which is basically erased on the photo. Here the mask settings. Increase the feather. Okay, too much. Like this. Yeah, I think that is fine. Obviously it looks way too harsh right now, so I'm going to opacity and decreasing it to 0. And then I'm gradually increasing the opacity, and I think I'll set it to 32 before, after. Yeah, and I'm also going to darken up my lips. So I'm creating a new curves layer, dragging the curve down, inverting the layer, zooming in on my lips, picking the brush tool, and painting over my lips like this. Way too harsh right now, so I can either drag the curve up or decrease the opacity. I think I'm going to drag it up like this, before, and that's after. Tip number 4. Contouring. It's probably the most difficult one out of all of these tips, but it's very, very important. So buckle up. Create the new curves layer, drag the curve down, Invert the mask layer by pressing Ctrl I, pick the brush tool, color white, adjust the size of the brush, and also smoothing to let it be 88, and contour the nose like this. The nose usually gets kind of lost on the photos, especially if it's a selfie, so I have to always contour it, otherwise it's just not seen properly on the photos. And then also adjust the size of the brush and draw the line right here. Then pick the blur tool and blur this line first. Also make sure that the strength is set to 100, the hardness also to 100. Okay, this line as well. Now with this line it's a bit more tricky, because you have to pick the eraser tool, set the hardness to 0, set the size, and then decrease the flow to about 10%, I think. Let's try it. And then gradually erase this line to make the edge softer. So it looks super harsh right now, so I'm going to drag this curve up. I think this line is a bit too narrow, so I'm going to zoom in again, pick the brush tool, color white, increase the size probably, and decrease the flow. 18%. Paint right here. Before, after. If it looks too harsh, you can also decrease the opacity, set it to 0, and then gradually increase it to your liking. 77 is fine for me. Now I have to also contour my cheek right here. So I'm creating a new curves layer, dragging it down, inverting the mask layer, picking the brush tool, color white as usual, increase the flow to 100%, and also decrease the smoothing because I don't need it right now. And I will paint over my cheek like this, up to my cheekbone and down to my chin. I will paint a bit more than I need, and then I will gradually erase it. Okay, I think that is fine. So next, I'm picking the eraser tool, increase the size, hardness to 0, and then flow is 10%, and I'm going to gradually erase this edge, like this. Obviously that's way too much, so I'm going to drag this curve up. Then I'm going to set the opacity to 0 and gradually increase it. 79. Okay, that's before and that's after. So now my face looks a bit more three-dimensional. The last but not the least, darken up the background. It might seem easy, but there are a few issues here, because the way you darken up the background will heavily depend on what kind of photo you have, what kind of background you have, and the amount of background. On this particular photo there is a little background, and my arm is cut off right here. So I'm going to darken up the background as a whole. And for this I'm creating the curves layer, and I'm dragging the curve down like this. And now I can either invert the mask and paint over the background, or I can simply erase the mask from the subject being myself. And I'm going to do the latter. So I'm picking the eraser tool, setting the flow to 100 and simply erasing it from myself. I think I'm going to increase the hardness. You don't have to be super precise with it, just make sure that the mask is erased from all the important areas, like your face, for example, and your arms, hands, fingers, yeah. Maybe consider increasing smoothing so it will be easier for you to paint. Ctrl Z. It's easier to erase it from the edges first, like this. Right here I couldn't see where the edge is, so I erase it from the background as well. And then I'm going to pick the brush tool again, increase the hardness, and then I'm going to paint over it, like this. Now the eraser tool again, and I'm erasing it from the rest of the subject. So that's the before and that's the after. So that's it for this photo, and now let's quick edit one more photo. So here is one more Anastasia picture, so I'm going to duplicate the background layer, filter, camera raw, go to presets. Let's try edgy. I'm going to pick this one, it looks kind of matte. Okay, I'm going to set it to 90. Okay, so before and after. And it looks quite dark right now, so I'm going to create a new curves layer, lighten up the picture as a whole. Now it looks kind of too light, so I'm going to create one more point right here by simply clicking on the curve, and I'm going to drag down the light. So this way it will only lighten up the dark areas. I'm going to decrease the opacity. Let it be 50, before and after. Now let's repeat all the same steps we did for the previous photos. So first of all, I'm painting over my eyes. Decrease the opacity. Let it be 36, I think, before, after. Now let's create a new curves layer. Drag the curve down, invert. Hardness to 0, and I will paint over my eyelids and also over my lips, and blur it right here. Drag the curve up and decrease the opacity. I think 47, maybe 50, 70. Okay, before, after. Now let's do the contouring. I'm going to increase the smoothing and decrease the brush size. Paint over here to contour my nose, and also right here. Increase the size, and I think I will decrease the flow to 40. Okay, then I'm going to blur these lines. So drag the curve up. Okay, let's go to mask settings and increase the feather. Okay. I think 12 is fine. So this line looks too dark, so I'm going to pick the eraser tool, increase the size, and decrease the flow to 12 and erase it. So this way it didn't erase the line, but it made it lighter. I think I will decrease the opacity. Now let's contour the cheek. Pick the brush tool, increase the size, and also set the flow to 100%, smoothing to 0. And I think I will also paint under my chin, like this. Blur it. Pick the eraser tool. flow 12% and gradually erase this contouring from here as well. Drag the curve up. Maybe I should decrease the opacity, let's check. Okay, I think 86 is fine. So here is before and here is after. Also for this photo, I want to create one more curves layer, drag the curve up, invert, and I want to lighten up my wig. So I'm picking the brush tool, I'm simply painting over the wig. So I like that it looks lighter right now, but I don't quite like the color. So let's try to change the color a bit. So here is RGB curve. Let's go to the red curve. And let's try to drag the reds up. Okay, it kind of lightens up the wig. Let's go to green and drag it up to get rid of the magenta color. Okay, just slightly. I think this is fine. Now let's go to blue as well. Let's decrease the blue. This way it brings up the yellow undertones. Thus it looks more red than magenta, which is what we are looking for. So before, after. I think it looks too harsh. Let's try to decrease the opacity. No. 50s. Okay, before and after. Great. And now we are ready to work on the background. So first of all, I don't like this corner. So let's create a new layer. Pick the stamp tool, increase the size. Set the sample to be current and below. Picking the sample and simply painting over this corner. So with this out of the way, let's try to add a vignette to the photo. For this, I'm creating a new curves layer, dragging the curve down, pick the eraser tool and set the size to be bigger than my head. No, I think even bigger. Let it be, yeah, like this. Set the flow to 100 first, and then erase the mask from the subject and a bit more. And also right here, let's try to decrease the opacity. 75 is fine, so that's before and that's the after. So basically I made this vignette to make the subject, being myself, pop on the picture. And also I want to try adding more contrast to the picture, so I'm creating a new brightness contrast layer and increasing the contrast. 24, before, after. Yeah, I think that looks better. So that's it. Let's check. I'm pressing Alt and clicking on the visibility of the background layer right here. So that's the original photo. Now pressing Alt again. That's the edited version. So now let's go and export it. JPG format, and I will set the scale to be 50 and click Export All. So for this picture there was no point in darkening up all the background. You can simply create a vignette and it will work just fine. And vignette is actually a magical thing because it can make a photo look better instantly. Just to show you, so here is my photo of Boa Hancock from One Piece, and obviously it's not a selfie, it's a photo taken by my sister on a camera, and I've already edited this photo, but I didn't add the vignette, so we're going to do it now. So I'm creating a new curves layer, dragging the curve down, picking the eraser tool, setting the size, hardness to 0, and I'm erasing the mask from myself. Like this, and a bit more. And also, I will go to mask settings and increase the feather. Okay, so here is before and here is after. See how it instantly created this focus on the subject? And also you can create one more curves layer, and this time we will drag the curve up. Not too much, just like this. Then invert the layer, pick the brush tool, set the size to be just like the eraser tool we used earlier, and paint over the subject. So now we've created a vignette, and at the same time we lighten up the subject. But the downside is that it kind of erased the contrast from my face. To get rid of this, we can simply create one more point on this curve and drag the dark colors down. See? So now it brought this contrast back. And I think I will also decrease the opacity a bit because it looks too much right now. So here is before and here is after. So that was my take on how to edit cosplay selfies. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like on this video down below and maybe even subscribe to my channel. I will be so happy to see you here anytime you want. I'm always here. Check out my other videos and I hope to see you in my next video. Have a nice day. Bye.